We are talking about social proof, case studies, testimonials, but also some other forms of social proof too. How to get it, and more importantly, how to use it. So, at a really high level, the biggest fear that customers have is this: does the product actually work? Does it actually meet my needs? Does it actually solve my problem? And you can reassure them until you're blue in the face that, yeah, the product absolutely works. It'll definitely solve your problem. But they're not going to believe you because you've got a vested interest in selling it to them. The best way to overcome this fear is to show other customers confirming that it solved their problem. This is called social proof, and it is the number one priority for any new business. Most people watching this, most people listening to this, probably don't have enough social proof on their website, on their marketing materials, and probably don't have a good systematic way for going out and getting more. Hence why we're doing this presentation. So social proof takes a few different forms. Could be some logos, like you can see here on Canva's website with Sony and HubSpot and Reddit, et cetera, et cetera. Could be awards. This is our very own Teamgate. Shout out to those guys. But you can see over here, they've got a whole lot of badges that they've gotten from G2, I think, or Capterra, G2. So you can see that they've used this as their form of social proof on their website. It could be testimonials. These ones are all pulled from Twitter or Net Promoter Scores. Sometimes they'll get a little bit longer than this, but it's people saying nice things about you. It could be reviews. These are all testimonials, but they're on official review websites like G2 and Trustpilot and Capterra. So there's a little bit more credibility associated with them because they've been, verified by a third party. Could be case studies like this on Canva's website, where it's a story about how a customer used this product to solve a problem that they had, and going into a bit more detail about, specifically the context and what they used and what they liked about it, et cetera, et cetera. And lastly, we've got numbers. These guys have some logos as well, but they've also got numbers about the number of users that they support and the amount of hours saved and conversations automatically resolved, et cetera, et cetera. Cool thing about social proof is that you can combine it as well. So what these guys have done is call out like a highlight, like used a number to highlight a particular improvement as a result of using their product, and then use that to headline the actual case studies that they've got as well. So you can mix and match these as much as you want, but it's good to have multiple types of social proof. And it's good to have obviously more, instead of just having one case study, if you want to have 2 or 3 or 5 or 7, ideally with different numbers, different logos, different testimonial called out and stuff like that, just to cover as many bases as possible. Social proof is one of those things where, if you've got one, it's what's the thing? One is a once off, 2 is a coincidence, 3 or more is a pattern. So you want to have 3 or more forms of social proof, ideally, if you want to reap the most benefits of conversions. So there's 5 different types of social proof. We've talked about them just now: testimonials, case studies, reviews, logos, and badges. I kind of group them together because it's basically a symbol that you can stick on your website that says you can trust us, and some numbers or some data about how people are using your product and benefiting from it. So let's dive in. They all serve the same purpose, and that purpose is to persuade potential customers by reassuring them and overcoming objections. What we're trying to convince them is that, hey, it's okay. You're not the only person using this. Look at this other person who used our product, and weren't they successful over here? You can be successful too. And that's the purpose of social proof. So a lot of people make mistakes when it comes to social proof, and this is probably something that you're guilty of. I'm certainly guilty of it. The biggest and most common one is that we give customers too much free rein. If you go to review sites or you go to someone's website and you look at the testimonials on there, quite often you'll see testimonials where people say, "Oh, the team is super friendly, and Steve's a really nice guy." And the problem is, what's happened is that company has just said to their customers, "Hey, would you mind giving us a testimonial?" And the customer goes, yeah, okay." And they're put on the spot and they don't really know what to say. And without any guidance, they just say the first thing that pops into their mind. And usually it's fairly ineffective. So you don't want to give customers too much free rein. That's usually how you get vague social proof, which is generally pretty effective as well, usually because you give customers too much free rein. You might give them social proof that looks fake or is not persuasive. This is particularly true with text testimonials. Usually text testimonials aren't great because they can be faked. Who's to say you didn't just write it yourself? So I'm a much bigger fan of using video, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But most people also tend to just use social proof on their homepage. Maybe they'll have a testimonials page as well, and then they kind of forget about testimonials outside of that. That's a mistake. There are so many other ways you can use testimonials more effectively, or other forms of social proof in general, a lot more effectively. Remember, the whole point of it is to aid with conversion. So we'll step into that in a moment as well. But the biggest one by far is that most SaaS founders are very guilty of gathering social proof in a really haphazard way. They're not systematic about how they do it. We sit there and we think, oh, gee, we really should get more testimonials, but oh, I got to do this other thing and I got to respond to this email. And it just ends up getting pushed to the bottom of the to-do list. Whereas the really successful companies have an organized, systematic way of gathering social proof on an ongoing basis. And they're constantly adding to the social proof that they have, updating it, listing it. And that is a really important habit to get into if you possibly can. So if you take anything away from this presentation, you want to be more organized about how you gather social proof, because you can never have too much of it. And you might have gone through a phase where you gathered all this social proof, and then a couple of years go by and suddenly all your reviews and testimonials are 2 or 3 years old and they don't carry as much weight anymore. If you're organized about gathering social proof all the time, constantly and consistently, all your social proof is going to be fresh. You're going to have bucket loads of it, and you can never have enough. So there's a lady named Angie Schottmuller who came up with this idea of the CRAVENS model, and this is how to make this is basically the litmus test for whether your social proof is going to be effective or not. So what she came up with is these things here. Is your social proof credible? Do people actually believe this? Is it relevant? Does the person giving this, did they have the same problem that I have? Is it attractive emotionally? Does it solve a need? Does it help me, save time or save money, or make money, or does it make my life easier? Is it visual? Does it stand out? Can I look at it very quickly, or do I have to, really take off my glasses and squint at it and look at it to understand what's going on? So you don't want dense graphs or anything that's really difficult to understand. You want to be able to look at it and immediately get the value immediately get the point of that social proof and understand it very quickly. This next one here, is it enumerated? Okay, so is there a number attached to it? It's all well and good saying that, hey, it saved us lots of time. That's okay. But saying it saved our team 6 hours per week on average is so much more persuasive because it's got a number attached to it. Quite often when you look at social proof, they forget about this part and it makes it weaker as a result. So you always want to attach a number to it if you possibly can. Nearby, that just means, is this person not geographically in close proximity, although maybe that's important. What this really means is this person similar to me? You could argue that this is pretty similar to being relevant, and there's probably, I honestly think she just stuck it in there to make it a proper word and make it flow a little bit easily. But if there was a difference between these two, relevant refers to the problem that you're tackling, and nearby refers to the person who is tackling it. Do they have the same job title that I have? Are they in a company that is similar to mine? Are they selling to the same audience? Do they have the same customers? Do they have the same types of challenges that we have? Do they have the same, is the company the same size as our company? It's all well and good to see testimonials from companies with thousands of employees, but I'm a small business owner. I've got 6 people working for me. Is this product really for me if you don't have anyone else with 6 people working for them? And the last one is specific. And this is also where a lot of people fall down. This is the, oh yeah, Steve's a nice guy, you should totally work with him style of testimonial, versus mentioning particular features in your product that were super helpful, versus mentioning, maybe something surprising that people weren't expecting when they first started working with you, but it was a pleasant surprise. Mentioning outcomes as well. Hey, we implemented this tool and we saw a massive increase in, the number of new bookings, and, it made it much easier for us to send out invoices. It meant that our conversion rate increased by 20%. This, again, is kind of similar to the enumerated part, but you can be specific without attaching a number to it. You want to ideally have a number and yet be specific about the feature or the part of the product, or the experience of the specific experience that you had with your product that made it so helpful and so useful. So anyway, so keep this in mind when you're gathering social proof, especially when you're getting testimonials from customers, and kind of run it through this and be honest, does it actually tick all of these boxes? If not, go back and ask the person to maybe tweak it a little bit and give you something that's a little bit more useful. So that brings us to how to use social proof effectively. What you want to do with social proof is use it as supporting copy near a call to action or at a point of friction. So the idea is that social proof increases motivation to do something difficult. It might be they've got to fill out a form and input some information. That's work. You're asking them to do some work. It's hard for them to do. Some people, when presented with having to fill out a form, are going to go, "Oh, this is too hard." Click away, and they never fill it out. So by adding some social proof, it might just be a testimonial underneath. It might be some reviews with some stars attached to them. I probably wouldn't stick a case study next to a sign-up form. That's probably overkill, but certainly something small like some testimonials or reviews, or even some logos of other companies that are also current customers of yours at the point where you're asking them to do some work is really effective. Certainly you want to stick it next to buttons that they want to click on, especially payment. Quite a lot of people will stick social proof on their homepage, but then when it comes to upgrade from free to paid inside their SaaS application, there is no social proof to be found anywhere. So anytime you want people to do work, anytime there is some friction, anytime you're asking them to do something that's difficult, stick some social proof there because it will increase the motivation of people to actually finish that step. This is the easiest and quickest win with social proof. Stick it where you've got a payment button or a sign up button, and you'll generally see an increase in conversions. We also want to use social proof to counter objections. This can be even on a sales call. Usually it won't be verbal. What you'll do is you'll have a deck or a presentation or a demo, and you'll have a part, so either on a particular page or scattered throughout that deck or presentation. You'll have some logos, you'll have some case studies, you'll have some quotes from happy customers. And so if a customer brings up an objection, what you can do is say, well, that's really interesting. Actually, Joe from one of our clients, Joe, actually had that objection a while back when I spoke to them. And here's what he said. And you can scroll back up and show them visually what that person said to counter the objection of the current customer that you're talking to. Again, you want to use this also at a point of near a call to action somewhere on your website as well, because that's often where people have objections. You can even have it underneath, sometimes you see an FAQ section underneath, do I need a credit card to sign up? What happens if this doesn't work out for me? What else do I need to do to be successful with this? In that FAQ section, you can also have underneath all of that, you can again have a couple of quotes and testimonials from people, often people that had objections previously and started using it and had great results. You can use it to draw attention to specific features. Quite often, it's often said that you need to sell the benefits, not the features. So on your website, you aren't going to list every single feature that your product possibly does or has. That's going to be massively overkill. It's going to get distracting. You want to call out just the top 2 or 3 things that you think does. But you can be clever about using testimonials to draw attention to maybe lesser known features that are still useful and valuable in certain circumstances. So if you can use this to kind of add some context to a specific feature that maybe more people should know about, you can still mention it without cluttering up your homepage or your features page. But more importantly, you want to use the social proof to humanize your marketing. You want to put faces and names and the companies that these people are from. You maybe want to link to their website, although I probably wouldn't stick that on your homepage just because from an SEO perspective, you don't want to leak too much Google juice from your homepage. But certainly if you've got these on a testimonials page, you can put a link to their website so they can go and check that out as well. So these are all the ways you can use social proof to improve conversions. And so what I challenge you to do is think about, okay, what social proof have I got currently? Where can I stick it on my homepage, on my sales deck, on my marketing collateral? Where can I put it that is going to humanize my marketing? Where can I put it that's going to draw attention to specific features or counter objections? What calls to action do I have where I can stick a testimonial or a review or some logos to increase the conversion rate, increase the number of people clicking that call to action? So that's how you use social proof a little bit more effectively. So let's go through each different kind of social proof, and we'll talk through, best practices and how to use them a little bit more effectively. So first up is testimonials. You know what they look like. They can be text or video, but video is so much stronger because it's way harder to fake. I know we have deep fakes and AI and all that kind of stuff now, but generally if you see text testimonials with no face, no, it might just be, yeah, this product's really good by Steve. Okay, who's Steve? Which companies is he from? What's his job title? What does he look like? Is he a real person? That a testimonial like that just screams that it's fake, and so people aren't going to trust it. It's probably going to do more harm than good. If you get someone on video, by default, there's a lot more trust because clearly it's a real person. You can see that they're saying nice things about you. But you've got another format as well. You can also take some sound bites or whatever people say on video and turn that into a text testimonial as well. You can get screen captures from it if need be, if you can't find a good photo of the person. I strongly encourage you to get video testimonials as opposed to just text on their own. Usually with the text ones, it's 1 to 3 sentences long. These are really fast and easy to collect, and most of the social proof that you'll be using is probably going to be in the form of testimonials just because it's easy to collect. But they have a couple of weaknesses. One is that they're easy to fake. The other one is that they're not verified by any third parties, which is different. The main point of difference between a testimonial and a review on an actual verified review site like Capterra, like G2, et cetera, et cetera. So where most people fall over with testimonials is that they don't ask good questions. You never, ever, ever want to just ask people to give you a testimonial without any instructions or guide rails. You might even want to go to the extent of writing it for them. I've done that before. I've asked someone, hey, will you give me a testimonial? They say, yeah, sure. Say, okay, well, look, I know you're busy. Would you mind saying something along these lines? And I send them a testimonial that I've written specifically for them. 99 times out of 100, they'll look at it and say, yeah, that sounds good. That's fine. You're saving them some time and effort, but what you're also doing is you're making sure that you can get testimonials that are specifically useful for you. You're guaranteeing that you'll get one that's better quality than if you just left it up to them. If you do want to get them on a call, and that's usually the best way to get video testimonials, get them on a call and record it. Here are 6 questions that I like to ask to get more useful testimonials. So what made you decide to use our product? How has using our product helped you? What specific features do you like the most about using our product? How much has your, whatever you're trying to achieve, how much time did you save on admin tasks? How much additional revenue did you generate from your Google ad campaigns? Whatever the key outcome that you're trying to achieve here, let's stick that in there. Since you started using our product, how many hours a week have you saved on invoicing and chasing up invoices for your customers since you started using our product? It's a good question to ask. Next one is, what would you tell someone who's considering using our product? Most of the time it'll be, oh yeah, it's fantastic, you should definitely use it. But that's the endorsement that you're looking for. And then finally, if you had to put a dollar value on what you've gained from using this product, what would it be? This one here is the most valuable of the lot. And the reason is you can stick this on your pricing page. You can stick this on your, when it comes time to upgrade from a free trial to a paid plan. This is the testimonial that you stick in that spot, because humans are very, very bad at judging the value of something. Like if I held up a mug and I said, how much is this worth? Is it worth $1? Is it worth $3? Is it worth $10? You couldn't tell me. Like, it's really hard for us to value that. But if I showed you 2 mugs and I said, hey, this is worth $1, how much do you think this is worth? You'd probably say, oh, maybe it's $1.50, maybe it's $2. You've got something to anchor it against. Now, we've talked about price anchoring on a different presentation in the past about, when you've got your pricing tiers and how to arrange the pricing to kind of get people to select the option that you want. In the case of social proof, what we can do is we can get someone to put a dollar value attached to the value they've received from using the product, stick that right next to the upgrade button, and it's very easy for someone to see, oh, wow, this person received $1,000 worth of value, and it's only going to cost me $50 a month. For $1,000 worth of value, $50 a month. $1,000 worth of value, $50 a month. Yeah, okay, that seems like a good idea. As long as the value received is higher than the value, the price that you're asking for, it's very easy for people to make that connection. I am better off by clicking this button. I would be so dumb if I didn't press this button, because I'm going to get way more value in just a moment. This is really important for a lot of SaaS businesses, though, because most SaaS products are really about saving time and saving effort. It's an efficiency thing. And sometimes that's really hard to quantify. So, number of hours saved is good, But if you can put a dollar value on that instead, it's so much easier. It's less of a mental hurdle to overcome to be able to figure out how much is that time actually worth. So if you can, ask this question on the end as well when you're asking them testimonial questions on video. A couple of other things you might want to consider as well. You want to ask leading questions. This is not when you're gathering feedback about your product where you don't want to ask leading questions. When you're asking for testimonials, you want to guide them toward giving you the answer that you actually want. So you might say stuff like, so which of these features were all really, really helpful for you, but which one was the most helpful? And so what you're kind of ruling out is them ever saying, well, this feature wasn't helpful at all. Okay, obviously they're agreeing that these features are helpful. So you want to ask leading questions that will plant the idea in the mind of the person you're talking to about the kind of answer or the way that you want them to answer that question. You want to include a headshot. If you're not sure if they don't have one on their website, just take it from LinkedIn. Most people are cool with that. You want to include their full name if you can. Sometimes you'll see testimonials that only have their first name and it's just not as persuasive because, again, it's easy to make that up. And you want to include their website, although I wouldn't link to that like we spoke about from an SEO perspective. On your homepage, it might be okay to link to it from the testimonials page, but you don't actually have to link to it at all. You can just mention that the website, people can go and Google that themselves if they're interested in figuring out if this person is real or not. But all this stuff helps add to the credibility, makes it feel a lot more real about the testimonial. So that's testimonials. You want to use them on your homepage. You want to use them on the testimonials page, obviously. Although you might start off with a testimonials page and over time gradually replace it with case studies or customer stories. They take a bit more work. We'll talk about that in the next section. But you might start off with a testimonials page and then change it over time as you gather more social proof. You want it next to calls to action. You want testimonials on your pricing page. You want them on your the upgrade page inside your app. And you might also want to use them in your email nurturing campaigns. So quite often, if you've got a lead magnet or you've got people landing on your website and joining your email list, but they haven't signed up for your product or they haven't even signed up for a trial of your product yet. We want to be nurturing them and leading them down our funnel and educating them and building up motivation and getting them excited about using our product until eventually they'll say, yep, you know what, it's time. I need to use this thing now. So you've probably got some email nurturing campaigns going, drip sequences they're called, as well. You've probably got some of these going. And the challenge with these campaigns is that it's often hard to come up with new reasons to reach out to them. There's only so many times you can say, hey, have you signed up for a trial yet? No. How about now? No. How about now? So instead of just nagging them over and over again, one useful thing that you can do is just drop in a bunch of testimonials. You don't even have to, provide any context. Just say, hey, this person said something really nice, thought you might find it interesting, and just let the testimonial speak for itself. So there's lots of other ways you can use testimonials besides just sticking them on your homepage. Get a bit more creative with them and you'll reap the rewards. Let's talk about case studies next. I'm going for time. So case studies are testimonials on steroids. It's not just, 2 or 3 sentences. We are writing an entire story about how someone solved a problem using our product. So it's a story about the customer. The customer is the hero in the story. They can be quite long. So at least 500 words, often up to 2,000. So it's a big ass blog post. It's not just a few sentences. There's usually a lot more work involved in putting a case study together. You want to include quotes from customers. You want to include statistics or numbers if you can. Images are good, maybe some screenshots if there's any graphs or analytics or metrics that you can gather as well. Those images are certainly really valuable. And if you can get a video from them, again, that's even better. These are really helpful if you've got lots of different industries that you're serving that can use your product in different ways. So you'll notice this is from Canva. So they've got a real estate industry that they serve over here. They've also got a use case in education. Global is kind of neither here nor there. They've got applications in marketing, but you can see they've got 3 different case studies from real estate. So that's something they're absolutely hammering there. But if, quite often SaaS businesses will serve multiple different industries and in very different ways. So you want at least one case study per industry that you serve. And so the advantage of case studies is that they are very persuasive. They are the most persuasive form of social proof you can get because they're a bit meatier. That, you know, there's more juice in them. You can kind of really stir up some pain about the problem that your customers are facing by talking about a customer you've already helped. And this is especially so for enterprise customers because generally the biggest barrier for them adopting your product in the enterprise space is not the price. It's the fact that they've got to make huge organizational change at their end. You know, they've got to train their employees how to use the product, and they need to probably integrate it with all the other tools that they're using, and they need to revamp their workflows, and there's got to change some documentation. Like there's getting big enterprise customers to change their way of doing business and adopt a new product is a really big and long ordeal. That's why sales cycles take so long. So you want really good case studies that you can send around to all the different decision makers to get them on board. That will help you shorten those enterprise sales cycles. Case studies are so valuable for everyone, but they're especially important for enterprise customers or SaaS businesses that are serving enterprise customers. But the biggest problem with case studies is that they're really time consuming to create because you've got to gather a lot of information. Often you've got to interview multiple people. You got to put it all together. Sometimes you need some graphics, you need some design resources as well. It's a real pain in the butt to pull it all together. So you might not have any of these as first, but you really want to prioritize getting at least one or two as quickly as possible, and then gathering more of them over time, like because they are so persuasive. So what's interesting about case studies is that it is effectively a story. You're telling a story about the customer. And humanity really only has one story. You're probably aware of this. Humanity has a story called The Hero's Journey, and this is going to ruin, if you're not familiar with this is going to ruin every book, every movie that you watch or read from now on, because every story follows the same basic format. So we start off by introducing the main character. Oh no, but there's a problem. There's something that forces them to change. They have to leave their village and go out. You know, there's this ring that they need to go and take to a volcano and throw into Mount Doom to get rid of the evil source. You know, there's the droid that the farm boy finds on the desert planet, and it's got a message, and he's got to go and figure out what that message says, and that leads him off on his adventure. So they need to find a solution, and this means they've got to change their current way of doing things, and so they have to go out on this search, on this quest to figure out what they need to do, what they need to change. And along the way, they meet some new friends. Okay. That's where you come in. That is your product. And so now they join forces together with their new friends, i.e. your product. And together we overcome the challenge that they set out to solve originally. And then they live happily ever after. This happily ever after part, that's the result that they achieve at the end. You know, so to put this in perspective, let me just go through. So to put this in perspective, it might be something like, you know, hey, we realized that we had this massive cybersecurity risk. So we couldn't just continue on the way we were. We had to do something about it. So we set about finding a solution, and we tried out a whole lot of vendors, and they couldn't quite, you know, meet our requirements for whatever reason. And then we stumbled across this product. And so the more we looked into this product, we thought, yep, this is right for us. So we started working with them. And now 6 months later, you know, our product is completely impenetrable, completely safe from cybersecurity attacks, and we couldn't be happier. So whatever the happily ever after part is, that is the value proposition. That is the reason why people use your product in the first place. That is the proof that your product solved their problem. Now, when you're gathering case studies, it's the mistake that most people make is that they ask after the fact. So they get customers on board, they've been using it for a few months, and then they go back to customers saying, oh, hey, would you mind giving us a case study? And the problem is there's a lot of preparation that goes into a case study, and most importantly, you need to capture some numbers at the very beginning. What results are you achieving now before you start using the product, before you've implemented our solution? So a good idea is that when you're talking to customers, just when they're starting out, say to them, hey, would you be up, you know, when you're successful, would you mind participating in a case study? Quite often people will say yes. If you need to sweeten the deal, you can offer them a discount. You can say, hey, we've got this like VIP customer club. And so what we ask is that you participate in a case study, and in return, you get all these extra benefits. Maybe you get access to all the features in a higher pricing tier, but at a lower cost. Maybe they get direct access to the CEO or input. Maybe you put them on your customer advisory board, whatever it is, give them some sort of special treatment. But whatever you want to do, you want to set the expectation up front that they're going to be participating in a case study. And that means a couple of things. It means that they've got to gather some really key numbers early on so that you can show the before and after. You want to conduct some interviews with stakeholders, and that might actually be 2 or 3 or 4 people, and you're going to record them all on video. These all qualify as video testimonials, by the way. You might as well kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Ask them those same testimonial questions that we did before. But you can use this as a negotiation lever as well. So typically, especially if you're dealing with enterprise customers, quite often they will push you for a discount. And instead of just caving and saying, yeah, okay, you can just pay us less money, what you can do is you can say instead, see, the thing is, all right, I'm open to it. We're trying to get a few more case studies up on the website. So I'll tell you what, if we drop the price by this amount, will you agree to be in a case study? And quite often people say, yeah, okay, that sounds good, because then they can go back to their boss and look like a hero because they managed to negotiate this discount. But you're still getting something of value there because you've gotten their agreement that they're going to provide you with a case study. And if people offer to, provide you with a case study, unless you really crash and burn, they're not going to say negative things about you. They kind of understand that they have to say something nice about you now. So middle managers really like having their names attached to these, partly because they get to look like a hero to their boss, go back and talk about all the money that they've managed to negotiate off, or but also if they implement a new solution, that new solution is successful, they get to claim the credit for it, and that helps them when they're going for a promotion or they're applying for a new job. So what you'll notice with Canva, they will often feature the middle manager, the specific decision maker that decided to bring Canva in and get their organization to adopt it across the company, because then that middle manager gets to point to it and say, look, here's an initiative that I drove. I got everyone to use Canva, and so we saved a ton of money on design resources, or we were able to crank out our collateral so much faster. So where are we? Yeah. So the most important part with case studies, though, is that you need the customer to be successful for it to have any weight. If you ask someone to give you a case study and they don't really achieve what they set out to achieve, you can't use it. You've kind of wasted everyone's time there. So you need to move heaven and earth, especially early on, to do everything you can to ensure that that customer is successful, so that you get a glowing case study, and then you can use that case study to show to the next person and make it easy to get more customers after that. So it doesn't just stop. The work doesn't just stop with getting them to agree to give you the case study. You need to engineer the situation so that you guarantee they are successful. And that might mean you have to do a whole lot of work behind the scenes to make that happen. But do whatever you have to do to make that customer successful so that you get a great testimonial. Because once you've got one good testimonial, everything gets much easier. One good case study, everything gets much easier. So you might want to use these on your case studies page. And like we spoke about, you probably start off with a testimonials page and then gradually turn that into a case studies page over time. I don't know if anyone's doing B2C, but if you are, you might not call it a case study. You might more often call it a customer story, is usually a little bit more of the terminology that's used in the B2C world. But in B2B, most people are looking for case studies. You can use it in your email nurturing campaigns. Again, tell the story about a customer and the problem they had and how they found your solution. And once they implemented it, they lived happily ever after. You really, really, really don't want to gate them. Don't ask people to give you their email address to download a testimonial. That is a classic mistake I've seen so many people make. You want this stuff to be visible for search engines, especially if you're selling to enterprise. Quite often people will Google your company name plus case studies because they want to be able to see if other companies just like them have used your product and been successful with it. So you absolutely want your case studies to be on your website, visible to search engines, visible to everyone. Don't stick them behind an email sign-up wall. That's a major, major, major mistake. And sometimes what you want to do is if you've got a testimonial and you've got a person under there, instead of linking to the website, you might want to, have a link. And when someone clicks on it, it goes through to the actual case study where they can read in a little bit more depth about how that company was successful using your product. just mindful of time here. Okay, so we'll talk about reviews. So reviews are really similar to testimonials. It's just that they're verified on a third-party website. So this is inherently a lot more risky because people can say bad things about your company, and then it's out there in the world. And anytime someone searches your company name, they're going to see some negative reviews, and that can really hurt your conversion. So you want to avoid that at all costs. So reviews are a little bit more powerful than testimonials because they're verified by a third party, but they carry a lot more risk as well. So you got to be very careful about how you approach gathering reviews on review sites. So they are a lot more trustworthy, but you can't write it for them. There are some other things you can do to kind of steer people towards giving you a positive one. We'll talk about that on the next slide. So what you want to do is not just ask people to go to Trustpilot or go to G2 and leave you a review. That's dangerous because usually people will only leave a review if they've had an amazing experience or if they've had a terrible experience. If you go through and you look at restaurant reviews or whatever, it's usually either 5-star or 1-star. Very few people leave like a 2 or 3-star review. It's 5 stars or 1 stars. And usually when people are more motivated to leave negative reviews because they had a terrible experience and they're angry, than they are to leave a 5-star review because they're really positively impressed and they had an amazing time. So if you just leave people to their own devices, you're probably going to pick up a lot more negative reviews, or a lot of negative reviews anyway. What you really want are 4- and 5-star reviews. So what you want to do instead of this is before you send them to the review site, once a customer completes an action within your SaaS app, so they close the cycle, they finish the workflow. Maybe if you've got an invoicing app, when they send their first invoice, or they send each invoice, when they do the thing that they set out to achieve and they've got a sense of accomplishment, I've done the thing now. That's when a little pop-up appears and it says, hey, how would you rate your experience using our product? And it can be a star rating. That's generally better for reviews because you're planting the idea in their mind. Could also be a net promoter score, like a score from 1 to 10 about how, whether they'd recommend this to, how likely they are to recommend it. But if you're really trying to game the review system, I'd ask for a star rating instead, because that's going to mirror what they'll see when they actually end up on the review site. So ask them for a star rating. If they give 4 or 5 stars, the next screen that pops up is, wow, thank you so much. Listen, would you mind going and giving us a review on this website here? Click the link. You go through to Capterra, you go through to G2, you go through to Google reviews, you go through to somewhere else. If they give you 1 or 3 stars, though, you don't send them to the review site, because they're probably going to give you a negative review. Instead, what you do is you ask them to give you some feedback so that you can improve the product. So what you're doing here is that you are putting a fork in the road, and only the people that are happy are likely to go off to a review site, and they're much more likely to leave a 4 or 5-star review, which allows you to kind of shape the reviews that you've got and make sure that they're overwhelmingly positive. That's going to help your conversions long term, and it minimizes the risk that the unhappy customers are going to go to review sites and talk trash about you. What you can also do is show a screen with an example review. So, hey, just before you go to Trustpilot, would you mind saying something along the lines of, yeah, this was amazing. We really got a lot of value out of this feature. Again, you're kind of writing it for them. You can't actually write it for them, but you can steer them in that direction by planting that idea in their mind about what a good review looks like. And if you do this a couple of times, when they go to the review site and they see the other reviews that people have left about your product, they'll also kind of look at those and mimic the behavior, mimic the style of those reviews as well. So really good to kind of set that pattern early by giving them an example of, how they might write a review that would be most helpful for you. Another thing you want to do is you don't want to scatter these around. So don't say leave a review, on G2 and Capterra and here and here and Trustpilot and give them 7 different options, because they might pick one of them and ignore the rest. More likely, though, they'll get confused and go, oh God, this looks like a lot of work, and just leave you no reviews at all. It's also important for awards. So, we'll talk about logos and badges in a second, but most of the time, the way you win those awards is by getting a whole bunch of really positive reviews in a fairly short space of time on one of these review sites. If you scatter those reviews across 2 or 3 or 5 different review sites, you don't get the critical mass of reviews, and therefore you don't get the awards. So you are far better off focusing all your time and attention on one review site first, getting stacks of reviews on there. And then once you feel like you've won all the awards and you've got all, everything you can out of that review site, then move on to the next one and focus all your attention on that one instead. That's much better going one at a time than diluting it across multiple review sites. You can, if you want to be a little bit dodgy about this, you can get friends and employees to review. If you get an employee to do it, obviously don't do it with a @company name email address. Get them to sign up with their personal email account. Or if they have a business or if they're a freelancer, get them to sign up with that one instead. That's much better. So you can seed it with a few friends and employees, but eventually, you'll run out of these. And that's why, when you see a company that's only got a handful of reviews, you don't really trust it. But if they've got 50 or 100, like most people don't have that many friends that would be willing to leave a review. So that's when it becomes really credible. That's why you need to have a lot of reviews, that critical mass of reviews on one site, as opposed to diluting it across many. But you can certainly get started with your employees and friends. Nice thing about these guys is you can kind of quite literally write the review that you want them to leave. And so you can sort of, again, shape the direction of what those reviews will look like. But you need to make them believable. So don't make every single one of these reviews 5 stars. Mix in a couple of 4-star reviews. You might even put in a 3-star review as well. Usually when people are reading reviews and they go down and they see one that, 5-star, 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 3-star, oh, this is interesting. And they'll actually look at the 3-star review in a lot more detail. So that makes it look a lot more natural. But if you're clever, you can also use the 3-star review to say, maybe draw attention to a specific feature that you really liked or something else. But say, look, it's, you can kind of wordsmith that in a way that's not super harmful, but still grabs people's attention. So that's how you gather reviews. And in terms of where to use them, you'd use them pretty much anywhere you'd use a testimonial on your homepage, testimonials page. Yeah, you can probably have like a reviews page instead of testimonials. Let me pull up the example before. That was Keep. I think that used to be Infusionsoft. They don't really do text testimonials at all. It's just all reviews because they've got so many of them now. When you're starting off, you might not have that many reviews yet, so you might swap them over time or use both side by side. But you eventually will probably replace your text testimonials with reviews once you get enough really good ones. You can stick them next to calls to action. Again, it increases motivation, so it's really important. Same on the pricing page, same on the upgrade page inside your app, same in the email nurturing campaigns. Anywhere you would use text testimonials, you can use reviews. There's actually actually, let me pause here for a second. This tool I found the other day called Senja, which is a really cool way of gathering reviews and leaving them on your website. So what it allows you to do is to suck in reviews from everywhere and stick them onto like a wall of love page. You can have these little pop-up things that are appearing here. You can put some quotes up on your website. You can do all of that stuff without needing to get developers involved. So if you're a non-techie like me, this can save you a lot of time. So really cool tool. You might want to check it out. But what's nice about it is if you do have reviews scattered all over the place, you can suck them all in using one tool. It makes it much easier to manage. Quite often people have reviews that they don't even know about. And that's an easy, quick win right there, is just to get reviews that you're not using from somewhere else, suck them in and display them on your homepage, on your pricing page, anywhere that's important. It's a tool you might want to check out. One other thing I forgot to mention before as well about case studies. Some of the best SaaS case studies I've ever seen on this website, run.io. So if you go into their case studies, you will see there's a very detailed story in here. There are quotes from customers. There's a snapshot here. There's a bit about the business, their favorite run features. This is awesome. I should have mentioned this earlier, but check out run.io as well if you want examples of good case studies. Going back to our slideshow now, we're talking about reviews still. So anyway you use text testimonials, you can use reviews. It's just that they carry that extra risk associated with them. So you want to have a good process in place before you open up the floodgates and ask people for reviews. Never just say, hey, would you mind going to G2 and leaving us a review? You want to make sure that only people who are happy are being sent to G2 to leave you a review. Let's talk quickly about logos and badges because I'm conscious of time here. So again, this is what they look like. What you'll notice though, doesn't actually say these are our customers. It just lists the logos. So there's a little bit of room for interpretation there. What they're trying to, you look at this and you think, oh, well, these are all customers because that's what you default to, but that's not necessarily the case. Or you've seen these badges. These are Tim Gates badges, and typically you get these badges by getting lots of great reviews on review sites. So another advantage to trying to focus on getting more reviews. So the thing about logos and badges is that they are not as effective as text or video. You can't use them to mention a specific feature or a specific result or outcome that was achieved. It's literally just, hey, this company is using it, or hey, we're a high performer, or easiest to do business with. What does that mean specifically? They're a lot better than nothing, and they're a lot more they're a lot easier to incorporate visually onto your homepage. They look good. Text can be a little bit jarring if you've got too much of it. So you might want to mix in some logos as well, or some badges as well. But it's not a substitute for text or video testimonials, not a substitute for case studies. Use it as an addition, not as a substitute. So the best sort of logos you can get are from really big, well-known brands that you have worked with. Alternatively, they are awards that you have won. There's actually, funnily enough, there's a lot of online awards that you can enter, and very, very few people enter them. So it's actually often quite a lot easier to win awards than you think it is. You just need to fill out a form, write a little bit about your business, and hey, presto, you might win an award. So Google around for some awards in your industry, enter a few. You might surprise yourself with how easy it is to win one of them. And then you can stick that up on your website and use that as social proof, from now on. But these are this is sort of first best logos and badges that you can get. If you don't have any big famous customers just yet, or you haven't won any awards, you might want to look at some other ones instead. So you can have media mentions, as mentioned in, whatever. Forbes is probably the easiest because you can be a contributor, but whatever media mentions you've had, if you've done a bit of a PR blitz, that can be a really good place to stick those. If you've been on TechCrunch because you raised some money, you can stick it on there. Any sort of media that you've had a mention, stick it up there. If you've sent around some press releases and some obscure media outlet has picked you up and mentioned you, that's still better than having no logos at all on your homepage. So use whatever you've got here. Alternatively, you could also use some partners. So maybe there are other bigger companies that are not necessarily customers of yours, but you work alongside. Microsoft has a pretty big partner ecosystem. A lot of big brands have partner ecosystems that you can kind of join and therefore claim to be a partner of and use their logo. You might also have employees who work at some big brands. I kind of suspect that's what's going on with Canva. It might be that HubSpot, well, maybe HubSpot's a bad example. It might be that Sony Music officially uses Canva as one of their tools. More likely, a couple of teams within Sony Music have said, hey, we need this design tool. Let's just start using it. So maybe Sony Music as a company hasn't adopted Canva, but some of the people, some of the individuals, or some of the teams within some of their Sony Music's divisions, maybe they're using it. So that's probably why they haven't said these are all our customers. They've just left it deliberately blank and let people make up their own mind about it. But certainly, if you've got people at well-known companies using your product, maybe they've signed up with like an @Sony Music email address, you can use their logos then. It's a little bit sketchy, but it's better than nothing. Finally, if you've really got nothing else to work with here, you can have integrations, or like, what tech tools do you use? What products do you integrate with? Stick a whole bunch of those things on your website. Quite often people will just sort of skim past it anyway. They go, oh, okay, they're working with these guys. That's cool. And they assume that they're customers and just kind of skip over it. But if people ever call you out on it, you can say, hey, we integrate with all of these tools. We just wanted to show that off. So you've got plausible deniability there, which is important. But if you really want to have actual famous customers that you've worked with, or well-known customers that you've worked with, or awards that you've won, or both. If you're using alternative logos, so these ones here, media mentions, partners, employees of, integration, stuff like that, don't have a label. Don't say that these are customers and then show media mentions. That's going to look a bit weird. Don't say, as mentioned in, and then list a whole bunch of stuff that you integrate with or tech tools that you use. Obviously, that's going to be a bit weird, but also, like, don't lie about it. What you can do is that's why, we have these ones that are open to interpretation. You're not lying. You just haven't explicitly said that they're a customer. It's just that, hey, someone who's using our product happens to work there. What you want to do is you want to ask for forgiveness, not permission. So just go ahead and use the logo. You might get someone from their legal team reach out and all pissed off and saying, hey, you can't use our logo without our permission. All right. Best thing to do is to bury a clause in your terms and conditions that allows you to use your logos. People never read these before they sign up, so you'll be able to get away with it. So if you get pushback, you can say, hey, like, you guys did agree to it when you signed up. Sometimes that'll shut them up. More often, what they'll probably do is say, well, I don't care. We'll stop using your product unless you get rid of our logo from your website. If that happens, you can back down, or you can even go back to them and just offer to give them a discount or something. But the point is, if you've got it in your terms and conditions when they sign up, they don't really have a leg to stand on legally. You protect yourself quite a lot by doing that. If you don't have this clause in your terms and conditions, yeah, they can get pretty nasty about it because they technically have never actually given you permission to use their logo. So always a good idea to just stick this in your terms and conditions. And you can just Google like some examples of how other companies have done that and just copy it. Or what I'm supposed to say is go and speak to a lawyer, get your own independent legal advice. So you can use logos and badges on your homepage. You can maybe use them on the pricing page, although I feel that testimonials that call out a very specific outcome or a very specific product feature that was great are more useful on your pricing page. But another good spot to stick logos and badges is on your lead magnet. So if people are going to download a PDF or a Google Sheet or something like that, and there's a little tiny bit where you've got a bit about your company, and then there's all the rest of the actual resource. That's a good spot to stick some of these logos as well, because again, people are going to skim past it visually. They're probably not going to read testimonials. That's kind of the wrong, you can maybe work them into some lead magnets, but it's usually the wrong spot for them because they're a bit in depth and there's too much text involved. But awards and logos are really good to stick on lead magnets as well, just to kind of reinforce, oh, wow, this company's actually really good and they won all these awards and lots of famous companies are working with them. Oh, cool. Okay. And then they go through and they read the rest of the lead magnet, but you've planted that idea in their brain early on, which helps as you continue to nurture that lead and eventually get them to sign up for a trial or buy your product. So final one here is numbers. Numbers are a really, really, really powerful way to communicate value. We spoke a little bit before about attaching a dollar value to the value of your product, because if you can put a number next to it, if you can enumerate it, then it's much easier for people to understand. And if you stick a dollar value next to it, it is very easy for you to put it side by side with your price and for people to go, oh, well, I'm getting all this value for not as much money. Okay, it's a no-brainer. I should sign up and use the product. But what you want to do with numbers, they're okay on their own, but you really want to use it to amplify other types of social proof. Don't use it instead of, use it as well as. The great thing about numbers is that they are believable. If you make the numbers believable, if you're just making stuff up, just don't do that. Don't lie. You can bend numbers, but don't lie with them. But numbers make things a lot more believable and credible. And they can be really, really effective. It is so much better to have, like I said, we have 20,000 small business users is so much better than lots of small businesses use us. The problem with numbers is that it's quite difficult to gather a lot of that data because you're not going to have access to it. You've got to go and ask your customers, and the customers might not have really put much time or effort into collecting it. So they just don't know, they don't have it, they haven't been tracking it. And that's where it gets a little bit messy. This is why you want to, set the expectation early, like you would with a case study, that you want to be gathering some of these numbers. And sometimes you get the issue that customers are not willing to disclose those numbers publicly, especially if it's got to do with something that's sensitive, maybe like revenue, maybe like cutting costs or something like that. So you might get some pushback from people that don't really want to share numbers publicly, or maybe that's just their company policy. We don't discuss that publicly. Not a whole lot you can do about that. So you want to try and sort of bend the numbers to tell the story that you want. And you can bend the truth as much as possible without actually breaking it. So don't ever lie about this because it will come back and bite you in the butt, but you can certainly bend it. So good way to do that is if the percentage is larger than the actual number and you want it to sound big and impressive, use the percentage. If the percentage is smaller than the actual number and you want it to sound really small, again, use the percentage. Like if the percentage really isn't that impressive, so let's say you had well, an example of that might be that you had one customer in year one, now you've got two customers in year two. You have had 100% customer growth year on year, but you only got one more customer. So you can use statistics like a politician does to kind of bend the truth in the direction that you want it to go, to tell the story that you want to tell. You can get a little bit creative about the numbers that you use and how you use them, but just don't lie about it. What you can do as a SaaS business, though, that's sort of an advantage, is quite often you will be gathering a lot of numbers about how people are using your product anyway, as part of your product analytics or your product metrics. So what you can do is, again, bury something in your terms and conditions about being able to use some of those insights, maybe not in a personally identifiable way, but in aggregate. And so you can have numbers on your websites like, hey, we've processed however many millions of dollars in payments, or we have invoiced, we've sent 30 million invoices, or we've collectively saved over 200 bajillion hours of admin time. You can't point to any, like, no one company. You're not pointing to any of those, but you're just saying all of our customers combined together have saved this amount of time, or made this amount of money, or saved this amount of money, or whatever your value proposition is. So that's an advantage that a lot of SaaS businesses have, is that we're tracking some of these numbers anyway. But in an ideal situation, what you do is you'd ask people for permission to run a case study on them from the very beginning, and ask them which numbers to track. And every time you check in with that customer, make sure that they're continuing to track that number. A good way to sell that to them, if they're a little bit on the fence about it initially, is to say, hey, we want to be able to track the ROI that you're receiving from using our product. So if you measure how long it takes you to do this right now, or how many of these you're sending out right now, or how much revenue you're making from this platform right now, okay, that's our starting point. That's our baseline. And what we'll do is we'll check in with you every month or every quarter and see how, if we're on track and how much we've improved things by, so that you can go back to your boss and look like a superstar for, implementing this change that has led to a massively better ROI for them. So if you set that from the beginning and you explain it in such a way, then people are going to be a lot more motivated to go and gather those initial baseline numbers, and then you've got something to compare against. So you can use numbers on your homepage. You can use them next to calls to action, yada, 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 all the same places that you'd use other social proof. I find the best way to use numbers, though, is to combine it with other things. So use numbers as headlines for case studies. If you're gathering testimonials, with your text testimonials, try and stick a number in there to enumerate it and make it more powerful. If you don't have, if you're just in a space where you're not really working with many big, well-known brands, you might not have many logos that you can share. The logos aren't going to be very powerful. If it's just like a bunch of random small businesses that nobody's ever heard of. In that scenario, you might be better off by talking about how many businesses you've got. You're probably better off saying, hey, we've got 500 small businesses, or 500 fashion e-commerce sites using our product. That's probably more persuasive than hey, here are 5 e-commerce stores that you've never ever heard of that are using our product. So depending on your scenario, numbers might be a better choice than logos or awards. But again, with both of those things, you don't want to use them on your own. You want to use them in conjunction with case studies, testimonials, and reviews. You can use numbers in email campaigns as well. But again, you kind of use it alongside maybe a case study or a testimonial to kind of tell the story and explain it further. So in summary, you always want to ask for social proof from happy or successful customers. Don't ask for social proof from people who are unhappy. Send them to support, solve their problem, make them happy again. Don't ask them to leave you a review or ask for social proof, because you'll get a lot of angry responses at best, and you'll get a lot of angry responses on review sites that you can't take down at worst. So only ever ask happy or successful customers for social proof. Secondly, you want to get case studies and you want to gather numbers. You are going to need input from the customer to be able to get the information that you need to do those things. That's going to be hard. It's going to involve work. So you want to set that expectation up front, and you might want to offer a discount or some sort of a sweetener in order to gather those case studies and numbers to persuade them to capture that information from the very beginning. Remember, like, you don't need to do this with all of your customers, but if you've got a really, like, a customer that you think is going to make for an amazing case study, or is really famous, or you think you can really, really, really be amazingly, astonishingly successful with, it's probably worth offering a discount to get that social proof, because then you can show that to every one of your potential customers going forward. Instead of just doing text testimonials, you want to try and get people onto a video call. The advantage of doing it on video is that you can re-record it however many times you need. Quite often people will be on the spot, they'll be nervous, they'll be a bit stiff and wooden the first time, and they'll go off on a tangent, they'll ramble a little bit. You'll get a bit of a crappy testimonial if you just do one take. But if you've got them on video and you're on the call with them, you can say, hey, yeah, that was good, but I think we sort of went a little bit off track. Do you mind if we just do that one more time, or maybe one more time as well? And you can go back and you can re-record that video testimonial until they give you a good take that you can actually use. So best way to get video is to tee up a video call with the customer, and then you can gently ask them to redo it. If they screw it up, you get a few more chances there. You want to be doing regular check-ins with your customers to capture numbers over time, instead of just asking them 6 months in, hey, yeah, do you remember, like, how many invoices were you sending per month, like 6 months ago? They're not going to have a clue, and they might not even be able to look it up for you. So, make sure you're capturing the baseline numbers when they start, and make sure you're doing regular check-ins with them to capture numbers as they progress, so that you can show kind of the trend and the improvement over time as well. That's important. You don't want to rely on the customer self-reporting all this stuff, because they're going to forget, or they're just not going to have the information available. And then the final point here, if you take anything else away from this presentation, is that you can use social proof in so many more locations, but the best way to use it is to increase motivation anywhere where there is friction. Stick it next to sign-up buttons, stick it next to payment buttons, stick it next to forms that you want people to fill out. Anywhere people have to do work, stick some social proof next to it to remind them why they're doing this in the first place, and show them there's some light at the end of the tunnel. If they just push through this little bit of difficult work, they can get to where they want to go. It is a mistake to just use social proof on your homepage and nowhere else. Anyway, so that's it from me.